Epiphany, the Feast of the Three Kings, which we celebrated on January 6th, continues throughout this week. Epiphany week is really also a continuation of the Christmas season. Christmas trees in the church are still up. People, it's traditional to continue to have your nativity scenes out. And for some people, of course, will take their Christmas down if they're getting a little dry for practical reasons and things like that. But we would say that at the end of this week, with the baptism of the Lord, then the Christmas season is finally properly concluded. So still properly celebrating Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everyone here. And on January 6th, as I said, it's the Feast of the Three Kings, celebrating the moment when they came, bringing gold, frankincense, and myrrh to the child Jesus to pay him homage and honor as the true king of Israel. Herod, of course, was very jealous. He was an earthly king, and he heard about this king, and he wanted to have him destroyed and had all the children slaughtered so that his own kingship would not be threatened. But he did not realize it was a different kind of king that was coming. So they brought gifts. Giving gifts on Christmas Day is actually a rather new idea when Christmas has become more commercialized. But the tradition used to be, and in some places still is, the giving of gifts took place this week, starting on January 6th, on the Feast of Epiphany, because that's when the wise men brought gifts to the true king. We celebrate the 12th day of Christmas on January 6th, Epiphany. We continue this celebration of Christmas until the baptism of the Lord this Sunday, concluding this week. Just a few words about today's gospel. Jesus performed a very powerful miracle. He walked on water. A miracle, what is a miracle? A miracle is some type of act or action that transcends the laws of nature. Studying science, you know that nature acts in a very ordered, in a very consistent way, in a very repeating manner. You can go to a lake or a pool, and you can run the experiment of stepping out on the water, and because of the composure of the molecules of the water, you will fall in. So you can repeat that experiment. I'm being a little sarcastic here or whatever, but you get the point. You're going to fall into that water every time. You're not going to walk on the water. What if, after a million tries, one time you stepped out in the water and then you actually were walking on it, we would call that miraculous, because that doesn't happen under the ordinary circumstances of nature. So a miracle, that's why miracle is so profound and so amazing, because it's something that goes outside the norm of the repeated behavior of nature. And so Jesus, throughout the Gospels, demonstrates to us his divine mission by performing miracles, things that are outside of the normal pattern of nature and how nature operates. So he has this power over nature because he is the God who created the universe. So Jesus performs these miracles as signs of his divinity, to show that he is who he claimed to be. And of course, his resurrection, his power over death, was the miracle of all, the greatest of all of his miracles. But today, Jesus walks on water. But But maybe one lesson we can learn from this is how imperfect the apostles were, despite having seen this miracle and many others. Because after this miracle, we see something very strange. We read at the end of this gospel, he had just done this great miracle. He says, take courage. The storm, they're in this great storm. Jesus comes on the boat after walking on water, and then it calms down. He does all these miraculous things, and then the gospel concludes, on the contrary, their hearts were hardened. That's very strange. After Jesus doing all these wonderful things for them, and yet their hearts were hardened. They kind of still didn't fully believe. But this shows the imperfection of the apostles. Even though they were these great men, in many ways, chosen by Christ, they were still human beings. And we are like that too. We do not always respond well to the things that we don't fully understand, because they make us uncomfortable. But let us not be so hard on ourselves for these imperfections. Christ seemed to understand the imperfections of his disciples, especially when he said, take courage, do not be afraid. So of the many things we could learn from this gospel, one would be patience with ourselves and our own imperfections. Even if we find ourselves not believing or struggling with something, whether it's a matter of faith or just something in everyday life, in school or with our family, to be patient with ourselves and ask God to open our hearts to those things that we do not fully understand. We don't fully understand, it means we feel like we're not in control, and then we're vulnerable, and we don't like that feeling of not having control of what's going on. But Jesus says, take courage, do not be afraid, even when you do not fully understand. He is the Son of the living God. In life and even in death, we should not be afraid, for he is with us. Perfect love casts out all fear. This is the only perfection for which we should all be striving. And so to love Jesus more deeply and trust him more completely with our lives.